They say home is where the heart is, but in some neighborhoods, it's where the rules are, and if you don't follow them, they'll crush you under paperwork, fines, and silence. This isn't a story about a driveway. It's about power, about how far a small group of people will go to control a community, and what happens when the wrong man becomes their target. Daniel Rourke didn't ask for a fight. He just wanted a quiet life for his kids after everything they'd lost. But when a backhoe showed up in his yard at 7 a.m. without warning, tearing apart what little piece they had left, Daniel did what he was trained to do. He watched. He listened. And then he fought back. This is the story of how one man stood up against a corrupt system and what it cost to bring it down. The rumble was deep like thunder. But wrong. Daniel Rourke's eyes snapped open. 6:58 a.m. Saturday. The one day he let himself sleep in. But something was off. The whole house vibrated like a heartbeat. Then came the metallic screech. Concrete against steel. He bolted upright. His youngest, Emma, was already in the doorway, clutching her plush fox, eyes wide. "Daddy, is there a truck in our yard?" He didn't answer. Barefoot, still in sweatpants, he dashed down the stairs and flung open the front door. What he saw didn't make sense. A bright yellow backhoe was clawing into his driveway, like it had a personal grudge. Chunks of concrete shattered. Dust filled the air. And behind the chaos stood a man with a clipboard and sunglasses too large for his face. Daniel stepped out onto the lawn. "What the hell is going on?" The man barely flinched. "Driveway removal. HOA directive. You were notified." "No, I wasn't," Daniel snapped. "There's no warning. No email. No letter, nothing." The man flipped through a clipboard with robotic indifference. "You should have checked the online portal. Section 12B. Your driveway doesn't meet the neighborhood's new uniform aesthetic standards." Daniel's stomach sank. The HOA. He had ignored them for the most part. Figured if he paid his dues and kept to himself, they'd leave him alone. But Marilyn DeWitt, the HOA president, was different. A former banker with too much time and too little empathy. She'd turned the HOA into a regime of cosmetic tyranny. Lawn too wild. Fine. Porch light too bright. Fine. Wrong flower color. Replace them or get fined. But this, you think this is acceptable? You think you can just destroy someone's property? The clipboard man shrugged. "We don't enforce. We execute orders. You'll want to take it up with the board." Daniel's fists clenched. Emma stood on the porch now, barefoot like him, staring at the ruins of the driveway where she'd drawn chalk butterflies just days ago. And in that moment, a memory hit him. Not from the FBI, not some sting operation or field mission, but his wife, Lila. Her voice in the back of his mind. "This is your home now. Danny, protect it." He looked up, and just down the street, leaning casually against a silver Lexus, was Marilyn DeWitt herself, arms crossed, watching. She smiled. That was when it stopped being a misunderstanding. That was when it became a declaration of war. By Monday, the driveway was a crater. Daniel stood by the kitchen window, sipping lukewarm coffee, watching his kids eat cereal in silence. The mess outside was impossible to ignore. Jagged concrete, exposed rebar, dirt where color once lived. He'd swept away what remained of the chalk drawings. Emma made a pink butterfly reduced to a ghost smear. She hadn't said much since Saturday. Neither had he. But silence, Daniel knew, was a tactical choice. The quieter someone got, the more dangerous they became. He pulled out his laptop and started digging. HOA bylaws were buried under layers of bureaucracy PDFs, with legal jargon stacked on top of technical nonsense. But one thing stood out. Section 12B had been amended just 3 weeks prior. No vote, no notice to homeowners, no digital paper trail of Daniel's supposed violation. They never told him because they didn't want him to stop it. He dialed Claire Hahn. She picked up on the second ring. "I saw the photos. Jesus, they really did it. I need you," he said. This isn't some HOA dispute. Something's off. Marilyn's pushing this through like she's running a corporation, not a neighborhood. Claire didn't hesitate. Send me everything. Claire had once been his partner at the bureau. She left after the Phoenix sting went sideways and joined a private investigation firm in Boulder. What she lacked in small talk, she made up for in results. If Marilyn DeWitt had skeletons, Claire would unearth the entire graveyard. That night, while his kids watched cartoons, Daniel combed through public HOA records, and that's when he saw a mysterious beautification initiative fund created 6 months earlier. Large sums of money redirected toward community enhancement projects. Yet zero detail on where it actually went. The next day, Claire showed up at his front door, holding a folder so thick it needed a rubber band. "Marilyn's dirty," she said bluntly. Stepping into the kitchen, Daniel raised an eyebrow. "How dirty?" Claire dropped the file on the table. "She's been rerouting HOA funds through a shell landscaping company." "Guess who owns it?" Daniel opened the folder. The business license said it all. Greenhaven Projects, LLC. Owner T. Boone. Tyler. Daniel blinked. "The clipboard guy," Claire nodded. "And it gets worse. Marilyn's been pushing homeowners to replace their driveways and fences under the guise of aesthetic compliance. But she's funneling the contracts to companies she and her brother control. It's fraud, coordinated, and large-scale." Daniel leaned back in his chair. He should have been furious, but all he felt was cold clarity. "She's not going to stop," he muttered. Claire folded her arms. "No, but we are." They began building the case. Witnesses, financial records, HOA meeting logs. Daniel recorded conversations with neighbors who'd also been threatened, people too scared to speak out. One woman, a retired schoolteacher named Mrs. Patel, broke down crying. "They fined me $900 for having solar lights in my garden. I wanted to fight, but I didn't want trouble." Another homeowner, a single mother named Carla, whispered through her door. "I paid them $3,000 to stop threatening me. I didn't know what else to do." Every conversation added weight to the truth. Marilyn had turned the HOA into a machine of intimidation, profit, and silence. But what she didn't count on was Daniel. Late that night, Daniel sat on the edge of his bed, watching Emma and her brother sleep. The house felt heavier somehow, not with fear, but with responsibility. He glanced out the window, at the shattered driveway beneath the moonlight. "This ends with us," he whispered. Claire emailed the draft lawsuit the next morning. Civil suit, $8 million in damages, misappropriation of funds, destruction of private property, and coercive HOA practices. And Daniel Rourke, once a quiet father trying to start over, became the spark that would set the neighborhood on fire. The courtroom was smaller than Daniel expected. Clean, impersonal, a judge who looked bored, a clerk who barely looked up. And yet, this was where everything would come to light. Marilyn DeWitt sat across the aisle, flanked by her high-priced lawyer and the ever-stoic Tyler Boone. She wore a cream blazer like armor, lips pursed into a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. Daniel didn't smile back. Claire took the lead. She laid out everything clear. Surgical, misuse of HOA funds, contracts funneled to shell companies, falsified HOA votes, witness statements from 6 homeowners, anonymous tips from a former board member, and most damning of all, a recorded conversation between Marilyn and Boone discussing how to push the undesirables out quietly. Marilyn's attorney tried to argue the recordings were inadmissible. The judge waved it off. "We're not in criminal court yet. Counselor, let's hear it." The audio played. "I don't care if it's illegal. Tyler, people like Rourke drag the value down. If he doesn't comply, we make him wish he had." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Daniel didn't move. Neither did Claire. Marilyn just blinked, as if the whole thing were beneath her. But the cracks were visible. Her composure faltered. Her fingers twitched. Tyler Boone leaned in, whispered something. She didn't respond. 2 days later, the ruling came down. The court found in favor of Daniel. Full damages granted $8, $1 million, including emotional distress, property loss, and punitive measures for HOA misconduct. And it didn't stop there. The judge recommended a criminal investigation into the HOA board's activities. Media picked up the story within hours. HOA tyranny exposed in Aurora. Veteran father breaks silence. Wins millions against corrupt. HOA. Marilyn DeWitt resigned before sunrise the next morning. Her house was on the market by noon. Tyler Boone disappeared entirely. Greenhaven Projects, LLC dissolved within a week. But the real victory wasn't the money. It was what happened after. The neighborhood changed. For the first time. People weren't whispering behind closed doors. They were talking openly. Mrs. Patel planted her solar lights again. Carla repainted her front porch lime green, unapologetically. And one chilly Saturday morning, Daniel repaved his driveway, this time wider, smoother, stronger. His kid stood beside him, chalk in hand, redrawing the butterfly Emma had lost. Bigger, brighter, unafraid. A local reporter asked him on camera, "Do you feel like justice was served?" Daniel paused, then smiled. This wasn't about justice. It was about reminding people they're not alone. And when you stop being afraid, people like her stop winning. He didn't take a leadership role in the new HOA. He didn't have to. The neighborhood no longer needed one. That night, sitting on the porch as his kids laughed in the yard, Daniel looked out over his street, his community, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not because the fight was over, but because it had meant something.